Hi, this is Amos. You may know me as Karawam on the Headphone forums. Recently I've been doing a bit of a shootout between a number of top portable amps and sources, and this all came about because when I was in Tokyo at the Fuji Avic headphone festivals, I happened across ALO's latest RX-3B and Cypher Labs algorithm solo, and I was quite impressed by the sound of those using even the ALO LCD3 headphones, which do require a lot of power. And so I wanted to find out, can you really get a high-end sound out of a portable rig? So thanks to Sean, who goes by the name of Anak-chan, I've had the chance to compare quite a range of recent portable designs, and also a pair of high-end in-ear monitors, which was very useful for the comparison. Thanks, Sean. Anyway, let's get into it. First one up is the old king of the hill, the Triad Audio L3. It was previously known as the Lisa 3 and used to come in a huge wooden box. Recently, Brad, who owns Triad Audio, managed to get a good metal case made for it, and the good thing is it's smaller than the old one. The downside is it's still pretty heavy. Now, the Lisa 3 or L3 was never a small amp. It was pretty big, and that really made it not so much a portable amp, but more like a transportable amp, or probably more accurately a battery powered amp. So this one weighs in about a pound. I'm doing my rough in the head conversion, about almost half a kilo. So it's not something you really want to try and put in your pocket. And if I grab an iPhone here, you can see it's pretty large. It's very chunky, and it's quite hefty, and you can stick this in a bag, but you know, the impression I got from it was more, especially considering it has two 9-volt batteries inside, more a kind of battery powered desktop. And true to that, it now and previously did come with a desktop power supply to turn into a proper desktop amp. So that's the L3. Quick overview of the features: the usual line in and line out, a bass boost, and the bass boost knob gives a fair increase in the bass, but it allows you to get a bit more warmth, a bit more bass in there if say you're using a pair of headphones that are a bit bass light. On the back you've got a RCA line-in jacks, the second line in, and that being full-size jacks, probably more designed to connect to a desktop source such as a CD player or digital analog converter. Gain switch, not much difference between the gain settings. I always thought gain settings should make a big difference, but like a lot of amps these days, it doesn't seem to adjust very much. And that's the L3. I'll get into sound impressions in just a bit, but I'd like to go over the amps first. Now the other one that succeeded, you could say succeeded the L3 as one of the top amps, was quite a surprising one from Ray Samuels, the SR-71B. And now this is quite a small amp still, it's still very portable. It's only about twice the thickness of an iPhone, excluding these bands of course, and actually shorter, if maybe a touch wider. And the remarkable thing about this is it's the first balanced portable amp. And that meant, if you're not familiar with what a balanced amp is, it roughly uses double the amplification circuitry, and it requires a special different headphone connector to a conventional one. So likewise, in a pair of headphones has a normal connector looks something like, there's a mini jack, which is tip, ring and sleeve, which has for a balanced amp you need 4 connections. So your normal balanced connection usually might use a single 4-pin XLR or 2 3-pin XLRs depending on the amp design, although recently they've trended towards just the one connection. Likewise, Ray Samuels started a trend by using a connector that's intended for digital cameras, an accessory connector. So the advantage of it though is it sits flush, almost flush to the case, which is very handy if you're carrying this around as a portable unit. You don't want too many cables sticking out. Now the rough overview of the features: there's the volume control, power, balanced output, single-ended output, and it's arranged so that when you plug in the balanced connector, it covers the single-ended output, because you don't want to be using both at the same time with the way it's designed. And it even has a balanced input, although the only balanced digital analog converter that's portable is made by Ibasso, and it's one I regret I haven't had a chance to try. And the single-ended line input, which is the one that's most commonly used. It also has individual gain switches for each channel, and which is an unusual feature. It's the first amp I've seen with individual gain switches, even a balanced amp. Now, what struck me was the first balanced portable I heard was the recent ALO RX-3B. This is, you see one here strapped to a Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo, and that was Sean's kit that he kindly lent me. This is somewhat bigger than the SR-71B. If I hold them up, you can see it's a bit longer, somewhat longer. It's about the same thickness though, and a little bit wider. And it again has your usual single-ended out, balanced out, 3 gain levels via a single switch, a bass boost, which actually has a on-off switch for the bass boost, so it's bypassed when it's actually off. Volume control, and single-ended input and balanced input with a switch much the same as the 71B. And this is designed to be paired with the Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo, as you see here. The normal setup you'd have is you've got an iPhone, which I can, while we've got here, I'll give you a bit of a size comparison. A bit wider, twice as thick, almost the same height. And you grab something like a USB line-out dock, plug it in as so, and the Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo, which is unique for our recent portable kit, extracts the digital out of the iPhone or iPod, and it has its own digital analog converter built in, or it can be used to another digital analog converter as a digital converter. Now again, to connect it to the RX-3B, you need another connector, and this, I've got a bit of a bowl of what looks like alphabet soup, might be line-out dock soup, and almost makes me want to grab, a pair of chopsticks, and it's like it looks like you're about to eat some ramen, albeit, well, it even looks like noodles with someone's gold fillings dropped in. That's a long one, that's too long. Something maybe more like this, which is quite shiny. Here's a shiny one, look, nice shiny copper one. There we go. Doesn't look very tasty, but it looks very shiny. Now, we plug that in on the other side. Now, I haven't strapped my iPhone down here, I've got to be careful. Plug those in, and a shwing! Is that an amp in your pocket, or you're just happy to see me? That's quite a lot to go in your pocket, and it's not going to fit in my pocket like the old pocket street maps I used to get of Sydney and Melbourne way back before there were phones that could browse the web. That's huge. Something more useful than that would be something along the lines of something a bit more compact. Here we go. There's a silver one. This has right angle connectors, and it's more what you want to get. I don't have a USB equivalent, but that's a bit more flush. You can get USB ones like that too, handmade at great expense. So after you get your amp doesn't seem too expensive at around $600, then you have to get your portable source, and your dock, and your other dock. And then maybe you want a silver dock, or a copper dock. Maybe you want both. Maybe you want different styles. Maybe if you've got the L3, you need a long stringy one. And then you end up with a few docks, and another $1,000 later, a very expensive portable rig. Oh yeah, you know Headphone's slogan, sorry about your wallet. That's very true with these. Okay, so that's your kit with the Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo and RX-3B. Getting into portable sources, as well as the Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo, what came out about the same time was a Fostex HP-P1. This, like your Cypher Labs Algorithm Solo, plugs in to your iPhone and has a digital analog converter in there. But it also has a headphone amp built in. Now the headphone amp built in isn't quite as good as the RX-3B, but you do have somewhat more compact kit. It's pretty good with IEMs. It does have on the back 3 levels of gain. It's not great with full-size headphones so much, although something like a Beyerdynamic DT1350 or Sennheiser HD25s, it's somewhere around that kind of area. It's pretty good. It's an expensive piece of kit though, costing about as much as one of these components on its own. And but it does have a couple of other useful features. If you're like me and you like your instruments to sound a bit more natural, it has a no pre-ringing filter, which gives a slightly softer sound than a conventional filter. You've got the option of that there. And it has a optical SPDIF port, which means you can plug it into someone else's system as a digital source, like a high-end CD player, a digital analog converter. That's great when you're going to shops or going to meets. I've done that in a few shops actually. I've taken in an optical cable and plugged in and listened to my own music through high-end systems, and for that it's very, very handy. Something that's been remarkably popular recently is the iBasso DX100, and this is an Android digital audio player. Imagine an Android phone without the phone, but with a digital analog converter and headphone amp built in. Now, not just any digital analog converter, but a Sabre ES9018, which is often used in very high-end digital analog converters. And it also has a very good headphone amp with a full-size socket and a small socket. And I or a number of people will tell you, you can even plug in things like the LCD3 and you get a very good sound. And even with very sensitive IEMs, or weird IEMs like the Sony series, which have a weird impedance curve and tend to make some amps sound a bit funny, this is pretty good. It has 3 levels of gain. It has a line out, which is controlled by the same volume control in the software, which shows up there. And it has, like a lot of stuff from the Far East, it has everything in the kitchen sink built in. Not only optical digital out, but coaxial digital out as well. And for adding music, it has 64 gigabytes of storage, and you can add up to an extra 64 gigabytes of storage via a micro SD card after you reformat it. Now, a funny story about that, I actually took this into a high-end dealer and with an adapter cable and used it as a source and preamp with a $10,000 Lin Climax twin power amp. And suffice to say, the sound was very impressive, and the dealer was very surprised about what this thing could do. It's not quite up to the level of quality as I get from my main digital analog converters, but considering that it costs only a fraction of the price, the difference isn't 4 times or 6 times as much, however much my system cost, which I don't really want to know. Don't really want to ever add that up. But still, a remarkable piece of kit. The downsides are it only uses Android 2.3.1 and it will never be upgraded, not even to 2.3.3. I think some people are going to end up pressuring iBasso, and I can hope that's wrong, but what I've heard so far is that it's never going to be upgraded. And that means that the battery life is somewhat limited. It has to use special music software so that it can get high-res music file output, and that software tends to be, when you switch it on, very slow loading. And it chews through battery life pretty quickly, especially if you use a sample rate converter, which is also built in. Handy, but battery eating. Even if I leave it by itself for a day, it drains the battery, which is pretty sad, even with the wireless off. But all the same, it is one of the best sounding units I've ever handled. And you know, if I had a full-size CD player or digital analog converter with this kind of sound for about the same price, I'd be happy. So that's the X100. Sound-wise, this is a bit better, I reckon, than the HP-P1 and the Cypher algorithm solo. The best combo, of course, is this plus the RX-3B, and that gives you a sound, or even the Cypher Labs algorithm solo and the RX-3B gives a sound that is almost as good as my high-end system. But to go over quickly all of them, the L3 is quite powerful. It has a quite powerful sound. It's quite, it sounds very deliberately powerful, and that's fantastic. But it doesn't have quite the refinement now of the balanced amps. Samuels has a slightly warmer sound, as if I turned up the bass boost a tiny bit. Some people don't find it quite as clear as the RX-3B, and I'd agree. The RX-3B is probably closest to what I generally term neutral, having compared it with other amps, and sadly without any measurements. But this has the most clear sound. It sounds more like a high-end component. The music is just there. It doesn't sound forced, whereas the L3 sounds a little bit forced. And generally I would say this does reach high end, and it does reach high end price once you add all the bits in there, because you need to re-terminate your headphones or buy an adapter. They need to be balanced headphones to begin with, and I think the only headphones that come balanced that are currently in production are the ALO LCD3s, and although I haven't checked if Hi-Fi Man produces makes their headphones available balanced right off the bat, but that's, once you add up all the bits and pieces, it does get up. It's high-end sound and a high-end price, but it definitely does it, I reckon. Is why I feel these systems do sound high-end, because we both have the technology to do so, and in comparing them with full-size amps and full-size digital analog converters, it's up there. Granted, it's not. Maybe you can still get better out of your multi-$1,000 digital analog converters, and still the sound's a bit more refined out of your high-end amps. But considering that the package this is in, and you can stick that in a bag, and you can, I wouldn't wear these on the train, but if you're going somewhere in your hotel room or somewhere you're visiting, take along your LCD3s, you can do that, and you can get a really fantastic sound out of that, and you're not wasting your money on getting a pair of LCD3s if you do want to use it with a kit like this, I reckon. And so anyway, that's the overview of the things I've been looking at this week, and I hope you enjoyed my coverage of those, and I'll see you on Headphone.